Hello and welcome to myfinanceteacher.org. Let's have a quick update about cryptocurrencies. First of all, looking at the Bitcoin cycle, I would like to adjust our view of the cycles, given that back in the middle of May, I was not convinced that the drop into the 10th of May was deep enough to give us a 2-month cycle low. Nearly every cycle over the last few years, with the exception of a couple of cases, finished with a cycle low below the 50-day moving average. For that reason, I really wanted to see a deeper correction in Bitcoin to give us a more clear cycle low. However, counting back from the 13th of March would give us 97 days in the ongoing cycle already, and that's pretty long. Over the last several years, the longest cycle near the end of 2018 lasted for 97 days. So going much beyond this number of days is a bit too long for a 2-month cycle low. For this reason, I want to mark out the previous cycle in Bitcoin lasting between the 13th of March and 10th of May, giving us a 58 days for that cycle, very close to the regular duration, but unfortunately with a very mild correction into the cycle low. So this count of 97 days, we can safely delete that, which brings us to our ongoing cycle of only 39 days. Within the ongoing cycle, we've mostly seen just a sideways move in Bitcoin, with some oscillation within the Bollinger Bands and, interestingly, with higher lows every time. This low on the 10th of May was followed by a higher low near the end of May and even a slightly higher low recently in the middle of June. Having started a new cycle on the 10th of May, let's disregard the high at the beginning of May. That gives us a couple of higher highs within the ongoing Bitcoin cycle. A series of higher lows and a couple of higher highs so far agrees with the rallying stage of an ongoing Bitcoin cycle. What we also see is from this high in the middle of May down into the low at the end of May, up into the high in early June and into the low in the middle of June, is simply some bouncing action between the upper and the lower range of the Bollinger Bands. The Bollinger Bands have actually narrowed quite a lot already, and that can precede a violent move, either to the up or to the downside. Given that we're only 39 days into the ongoing Bitcoin cycle, I think there is a greater chance that Bitcoin gives us a significant move up rather than a violent move down. That also agrees with our bouncing within the Bollinger Bands. Our last bounce was from the lower range of the Bollinger Bands, which means even if we don't get a violent move up towards 11,000, we are at least likely to move towards a bounce near the upper range of the Bollinger Bands, which would be just at about $10,000. Looking at RSI is relatively flat. This is a 14-day RSI. So to distinguish some more details, let's go down to, let's say, a 4-hour chart. What we see on the 4-hour chart is we've seen a couple of dips into the oversold area. That happened a couple of times over the last week or so. And since then, the 14-period RSI on the 4-hour chart hasn't come anywhere close to overbought area. If we look at some history here, we see that often after touching the oversold area, RSI keeps trending upwards until it at least touches or even dips into overbought area. So 14-day RSI favors some strength in Bitcoin, at least over the next few days, for this RSI to come closer to the overbought area. Looking at the chart itself, what one can see is actually some sort of an inverse head and shoulders formation, with the neckline a little bit fuzzy, somewhere at about 9,500 to 9,550. This inverse head and shoulders pattern also favors some strength in Bitcoin, at least over the next several days. If this pattern is to play out as it usually does, then a measured target would be based on the height of this formation. For the height, even if we try to be conservative and ignore some of these wicks, the height is somewhere around $500. If you don't ignore these wicks, this height is closer to around $600 or so. So a measured move above neckline of $500 to $600 would be a move towards 10,000 or 10,100, which would be close enough to retesting this resistance from the recent highs in the beginning of June. And if that were to play out, that would be a gain of 5.5% to nearly 7% from the neckline at about 9,550. So in my personal trade, what I'm going to do is I'll probably place an order to buy Bitcoins if it breaks above, let's say, 9,500. Say at the price of 9,510. My stop loss would be at the bottom of the body of this candle, ignoring the wick, let's say somewhere at about $9,300. And my take profit would be close to that resistance zone, let's say at $10,100. That would give me 2% risk on the downside and over 6% potential gains on the upside, with a risk-reward ratio of over 3. I think it is relatively attractive, so I'm going to place an order for that. If you want to have a go at that, you are welcome. However, remember, this is not investment advice. In these videos, I try to share with you what exactly I am doing in my personal trades. Next, let's have a quick look at Ethereum. The cycles for Ethereum are slightly shorter than those for Bitcoin. Over the last couple of years, these cycles on average lasted for about 51 days. And the ongoing cycle so far is on day 38. So although just like for Bitcoin, there is a chance that Ethereum pushes higher over the next few days, I think there is a slightly larger chance that Bitcoin actually drops over the next few days. And unlike on Bitcoin, on Ethereum, we haven't actually seen a poke through the lower range of the Bollinger Bands yet. So before Ethereum decides to travel back to the upper range of the Bollinger Bands, it might still slide down a little bit to poke through the lower range of the Bollinger Bands. And looking at the 14-day RSI at the end of May, on the 30th of May, 14-day RSI has actually touched oversold levels, reaching 70.1. That is also different to Bitcoin's RSI, which hasn't been to oversold levels all the way since April. And if we step down into the 4-hour chart on Ethereum, you might also see something like a reverse head and shoulders formation on Ethereum as well. But while the neckline for Bitcoin is somewhat upward sloped, the neckline for Ethereum is a little bit downward sloped. And that might indicate that there isn't as much strength in this pattern. But on the other hand, if Bitcoin pushes up towards $10,000 and possibly even a little bit higher than that, it might drag other cryptocurrencies, including Ethereum, up with it. So over the next couple of days, if Ethereum closes above this, say, recent high at 237.5, then it might have a chance to go up towards a measured target, about $19 higher, including the wicks, or $15 higher if we exclude the wicks. $16 to $19 higher from the neckline at about 237 will actually allow Ethereum to also retest the resistance at the recent high from early July. However, I'm still considering whether to go into this Ethereum trade or not over the next 1 or 2 days, because the risk-reward ratio is not as attractive as on Bitcoin. If I were to enter this trade once Ethereum breaks above, let's say, $235, let's say I have an order at about $236.3 with a stop loss at the recent low at about $228.5 and a take profit target of, let's say, $253, just below that resistance zone. That would give me a risk level of 3.3% on the downside and a potential reward of nearly 7% on the upside, with a risk-reward ratio of only about 2.1. which doesn't look as attractive as a risk-reward ratio of slightly over 3 for Bitcoin. So just as I said, I don't provide investment advice in my videos, I just share with you what exactly I'm doing in my own trades. So as you see from this screenshot, I have an active order to buy if the market price reaches $9,510. While this is a short-term trade, I do have my long-term allocation to cryptocurrencies, where I hold over 90% in my long-term hodl position and only trade with some play money. And even out of that trading portfolio, this trade will only account for a small percentage, say somewhere below 10%. So that's what I'm trying out at the moment, trying to play off this inverse head and shoulders formation. Let's see if Bitcoin retests $10,000 over the next few days. And while we're waiting for that, I wish you a very pleasant day and good luck in your trades.